Shalom and welcome to Aisha Torah, practical spirituality here in the old city of Jerusalem overlooking the Western Wall. And we're just opening today with a quick thought of of moving to Israel because a gentleman in this classroom has just moved to Israel officially. We can clap for him. And so when you move to Israel, there's two ways you can do it. Because we learned from the 12 spies that came into Israel on a reconnaissance mission that you can come here to see how you're going to do it. And then there's the way the 10 spies that created all kinds of havoc that we're still suffering till this day for was figuring out if you can do it. If you come to Israel trying to figure out if you can move to Israel, Israel grows pointed ears and fangs. It will look so disastrous. It will look like a place you could never make it. Literally, it'll look like a place where you just will never make it. And gee, wasn't life easier where I'm from, you know? And if, on the other hand, you come like Joshua, and Kalev, who were the other two spies who came to check out the land, they were just coming to see how they would do it. Just seeing how they would do it. It's not like God who just decimated 40 years ago, the biggest civilization in history without one Jew even lifting a finger. The biggest civilization of Israel was leveled into rubble by the God of Israel. Wait, you think you can't handle moving into a land that was promised by that same God? Like, it's not going to be a big problem. It's fine to go into the land and check out how you'll do it, but not if you can do it. But somehow those 10 spies came with the wrong intentions. And because they had the wrong intentions, as I said, the land grew pointed ears and fangs. And they came back with a bad report saying that, well, we can't do it. The cities are fortified, the armies are strong, it's 7 different nations. They're vicious and they are dangerous and we just cannot do it. And the Jewish people cried all night that night, and that became the night of tears called Tisha B'Av, where the Jewish people cry every year in the summertime on the 9th of Av, where that year has become a day of crying ever since. And both first and second temples were destroyed on that day. And it just became this eternal calamity. And what was the big deal? The big deal was that all the Jews, not all the Jews, the women didn't, by the way. Gotta leave it for those women. The women did not believe the spies. Only the men believed it. And the men got freed. I mean, I guess someone explained about why the men, because they were the ones who would have to fight. But in the end, the men cried throughout the night, "Oh, poor us," and that became like their curse, because every man that cried that night had to die in the desert. They were not going to make it into the land of Israel. And they spent the next, that's why, one of the reasons we were in the desert for 40 years is we had to wait till they died. Once they had all died, that whole generation of men had died. So then we could go into the land. Who were we going into the land with? All the kids who were there at that time. All the ladies that were there at that time. All the elderly and all the people who didn't cry got to live to see, obviously Joshua and Kalev got to go in the land. And anyone who didn't buy it got to go into the land. Who didn't buy this report. Now, by the way, it wasn't an inaccurate report. It was formidable. It was probably impossible to conquer the land. They probably knew what they were saying, and they were right that it would be on any physical level impossible. So it wasn't like they were lying. They weren't like trying to mess everybody up. They were being realists. But to quote Shimon Peres, which I don't think ever have, maybe once or twice in my life, so I shouldn't say never, but to quote Shimon Peres, he said that anyone who, and maybe it wasn't Shimon Peres, By the way, this is Aviva. She's in charge of when things are funny and even when they're not. Okay. Anyway, but the words, and one of our prime ministers said it. I remember. Anyone who doesn't believe in anyone in Israel who doesn't believe in miracles is not a realist. You understand? Those spies were realists, and they didn't come into the land. Okay, Joshua and Caleb, who said, "Yeah, it's going to be rough, but God could do this." They believed in miracles, and they were the realists. They were the true realists, because the true realist knows that. By the way, you know this in your own life. All of us know this in your own life. You know, have you ever gone hungry in your life? Have you ever gone hungry?
Yeah, I'm actually hungry.
I don't think you understood that very well. There's being hungry, and then there's going hungry.
Like they're in the middle of the desert.
You've never gone hungry, like for days of hunger,
No.
like scraping things out of cans and garbage dumpsters and stuff. That never happened to you, did it?
No.
Okay, but now I'm going to ask you to answer a question honestly. You ever worried about your parnassa? Like in your life, like how it's going to be and what's going to happen, and are you going to be okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I have worried about my livelihood. Well, listen, if you had been as a child bit by a cat, which I know cats don't bite people, but they scratch people, but let's just say you got bit by a cat. Now I asked you, are you afraid of cats? And if you were to say yes, well, that would be understandable because you've had an experience of having been bit by a cat, so perhaps that would make sense to be a little afraid of cats. But for a woman who's never gone hungry, to spend any time worrying about her food and where her livelihood will come from, when it's never ever been a problem. So that would be called a non-realist. Now, meaning you're not real. You're partially crazy, but don't worry. Watch this. Everyone raise your hands if you would have wound up in the same boat. Raise your hand if you would have wound up in the whole room. I'm just picking on you. Everyone else, you know. And I myself, I have to admit, there are times, which is like, just if you watch my bank account, you'd really say that's crazy. But I myself have wondered how I'm going to make it. And I got 8 kids. So I've already married 2 off, which is amazing. 6 to go. Okay, I got quite an exit plan. Now, when you have that many kids, you need an exit plan. Yeah, no 38-year-old long-haired guy smoking pot in his baby boy room, watching, playing, kill 'em videos,
How many more kids do you have?
That's not happening. When you have 8 kids, man, you need an exit plan, which is very good for the kids, because that means, if you're the one marrying them off. Well, if you're marrying off your children, so then you must take good care of them. So you have good schera. How do you say schera? Merchandise. You have to have good merchandise. You understand? Your kids run wild, nobody wants them. So now you're stuck. You had a great entry plan, be fruitful and multiply. Everyone loves that mitzvah. And your entry plan was no big deal, but your exit plan stinks. So you need to take very good care of those kids. Keep a strong eye on them. That's why a son-in-law in Yiddish is called Eidim. You know why? Because they're witnesses, their testimony. What are they testimony? Their testimony that the father took care of his daughters and made sure they didn't wind up, thrown to the wolves. Aviva, that was supposed to be a pregnant pause.
Oh.
Yeah, no.
I didn't get it.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Like Laugh Factory.
Yeah. No, Aviva, maybe I'll give it like a Trump kind of that, That'll mean it's not a laugher, okay? So, just watch my right hand. So, anyway, but the groom of it, meaning I have 2 men so far that have joined my family by marrying my daughters. and they're called testimony. Literally, they're called that. Like someone will tell me, I saw your testimony today, or I said, has anyone seen my testimony in this shul? Because 500 people in there. They're called testimony because they're testimony that we took care of our daughters, both before as as saleable merchandise, not that we sell them, and then but meaning they were kept pure enough that someone would want to marry them, and then the other is the testimony that we didn't just leave them waiting and hanging around. Like how are you supposed to marry yourself off? I mean, it's basically impossible. Hey, this is my next daughter in line. How you doing? Welcome. Let's find you a seat. Sit next to this lady here. Is that your stuff on the chair?
Yom Tov, you have all daughters?
Yeah, you'd be starting to wonder, right? No, I have 3 boys. Yeah. Yeah, I got a few boys. One's in Europe. Ran out of money. He's singing in a choir for the high holidays in Budapest. But he took a little trip to Vienna, and he found it to be cold there, and didn't have enough clothes. So he sent me a little SOS to WhatsApp him. No, by the way, we're going to be sending money on WhatsApp like this year. Yeah, WhatsApp's going cash now. Yeah. So what is it called?
Venmo?
Fast Track, Venmo, whatever.
Zell.
Yeah. He needed a little dough to buy some warmer clothes.
Hopefully he's not by himself.
Nah, he's with his whole gang of boys over there. The choir boys.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to talk about choir boys in Europe right now. That's a very charged subject, but these choir boys are all in their 20s, and they're just Hasidic kids with rental cars and free food and hotel rooms for the next 10 days. So watch out. Yeah. I don't think there's going to be any beer left in Budapest by the time they're out of there. Now, anyway, so the amazing thing is that God's been totally taking care of you all these years, and not only you, but everyone. What do you think? You're some set up crowd that I brought in that are like the people who God perfectly took care of every year. God's been perfectly taking care of everyone every year, and the wild thing is once you really when you meet someone who actually did go hungry, you've met a teacher. You've been there? You met a teacher now. You met a teacher. And tell me, are you not a teacher?
I am a teacher.
That's what I'm saying. We got one guy who went hungry, and now he's a teacher. And I'll tell you...
Because I know how to get out of it.
Very nice. And you can teach another how to do that. Yeah. And I'll tell you, these eyes, my own eyes, I know they look a little cat scratched from maybe some sad times. But really, most of the cat scratch on my eyes are from staring into the afternoon sun every single afternoon for 12 years straight. Because when you surf on the West Coast, the sun sets on your face for hours and hours, cold salt water, and squinting into the sun, just trying to make out the waves, which you may not think is a very big deal, but when the waves are, 20 feet high, you're really trying to make them out so you don't wind up in trouble. And so I did that every day for 12 years straight, every single afternoon, almost without exception. And that's how, by the way, I have 2 brothers older than me. One's 6 years older, one's 3 years older than me. No matter where we went, once I had been doing that enough years, everywhere we went, they were sure I was the oldest of my brothers. It's like, here I'm 20 years old. I got a 26-year-old brother. And everyone just thinks I'm older than him because of all those years staring into the sun. But that also has a little bit to do with his maturity. Okay, he's 56 now, and if you invite him to a house party, he'll be playing with the kids, like throwing them into the swimming pool and stuff, and all kinds of other things like that. He's one of these people that just never grew up, but my kids love him because it's a lot of fun. He's here usually every Purim. which is great. Hi, ladies. Table for two is all I can offer you. Sorry to put you right in front. That's just the breaks. One of you can go around me. So, anyway, where was I at? I forget where I was at. I'm not asking you. Anyway, so the spies. Yeah, our job is never to see if we can make it. Our job is just to watch. Just to watch and watch and shut up. Watch and shut up. That's what I'm just quoting the Torah. It says you'll see, and then it says Vatem tacharishun, and you will be silent. Well, in 2019, what's a better way of saying you'll be silent? Shut up. Which doesn't mean just shutting up your mouth. You got to shut up your mind. That worries. The mind that worries. You know, here you've been so cared for all these years. How dare you worry? And you know, it's embarrassing in front of God. We all have to be deeply embarrassed in front of God. How you doing? Welcome. Shalom. There's a seat right there. Yeah, just move your stuff. We all have to be embarrassed in front of God because because here God's like totally got your back all these years, but totally. And that's embarrassing to have doubt that he's going to get your back moving forward. It's pretty embarrassing. And so, you know, it's a little weird that we even do that. Maybe it's built in, maybe it's not. Maybe we shouldn't be embarrassed. Maybe it's built in, you know, like every animal's hardwired for its survival. Maybe that's just our instinct. Like we're just hardwired for survival. And God won't be so much upset that we worry about our well-being because we're hardwired to worry about these things. Could be. So then it makes me think about, like, we're also hardwired for reproduction. And that you better worry about. You know, we gotta, like, that you can't just sit down and watch it happen. Right? There, it doesn't say shut up. There it says, go find a spouse. And more important than finding a spouse is making sure you're someone worth marrying. Because, I mean, for most people in this room, no offense, I mean, you all seem like lovely people, but anyone who would want to marry you should be slapped. So, no, you just, many of you just aren't really marriage material, you know. You will be, but only if you say you're not, you know. I mean, why punish some person with you? You know? You know, everyone knows their stuff. You know your stuff. We got a girl engaged back here. Yeah, here she goes. Yeah, but you know deep down what he's getting himself into. And I happen to know him a lot better than I know you, by the way. And you know deep down what you're getting him into. And he himself, you know, bless him for turning a blind eye, you know. Bless him for totally ignoring what he may be getting himself into because he's not sure exactly. But, yeah, what's up? Yes.
What are the minimum requirements?
Minimum requirements.
I didn't hit the minimum.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, that got left open. Yeah. Minimum requirements? Oh, yeah, just now someone came. Yeah, how you doing? There's a seat right there next to the dude in black. So, yeah. So the minimum requirements. That's funny. He's asking about minimum requirements. Does anyone know the minimum requirements? Alive. You know.
What?
He said alive. Did you mean that as a joke?
It's part of your age.
Yeah.
I think a minimum requirement should be like some sort of stability.
Stability? Like emotional or financial?
Like both.
Stability. Yeah, stability is...
Because how are you going to partner up with someone if you're like non-balanced?
Uh-huh.
Because then it just makes a whole wacky shit.
I think that stability is a good thing. I think it's a good thing. I don't think it's an absolute requirement. Like my wife, for example, she married a very unstable man. I'm a more spiritual type, which means, you know, my emotional moves are like, it looks a lot like a heartbeat monitor. Yeah, like I move around a lot. Spiritual people tend to have large fluctuations, serious amplitudes. What?
Why do you say that?
You mean, how do I know that? I don't know why you say that. What? I don't know.
Explain.
Yeah, I've studied quite a bit about this stuff, and I've also found that the more I'm here receiving thousands of people a year for 28 years. Like I haven't budged for 28 years from this spot, so I get to meet a lot of people, and there was a time where we were really meeting a lot of people, and I always found that the more spiritual the person, the bigger the amplitudes that person would be dealing with. Anyway, so she married a very spiritual person. She also married someone who hasn't a clue. Rabbi, this is your seat right here. I'm seating people. She doesn't have a clue. She didn't have a clue. I didn't have a clue how I was going to make a living. And so we spent our first 7 years in 2 rooms. When I say 2 rooms, there was a little room with a table where we could eat, and of course put as many guests as possible in there. And then we had another little room which had a bed for us, and then we had an accordion partition between us and the kids in that room. That, you know, didn't even have a wall, you know, it was just an accordion partition about that high. And we lived that way for 7 years. So there was nothing stable. The only thing stable was our faith in God, and that was more stable than anything else. Our faith in God was very stable. And that was the stability. So I would say the minimum requirement is faith in God. And the other thing that'd be really good is I'm not going to go on and on about this, but the other thing that'd be really good in getting married is to take off that backpack. There's a guy coming. Here's a spot for you right here in the middle. The other thing that'd be really good is to, just careful not to bump the table, is to have your stuff in order, meaning your crazy stuff.
Like your maturity?
That would be something worth working on. Yeah. So maturity is probably an important thing. Anyway, but you just want your stuff worked out. That's all. Now, some of you are looking at me like, how am I supposed to get all my stuff worked out? So the way you get your stuff worked out is by allowing a professional to introduce great chaos. Allowing a professional, what's up? Standing room only now. You can just stand if you want. Okay. You want to allow someone who's like a world-class professional. Ready for this? Listen carefully. You want to allow someone who's a world-class professional, like a serious professional, to introduce such an intense amount of chaos into your life till you're shaken, your very foundations of reality are shaken. And when you've been properly shaken, what will happen is a lot of your mishugas, a lot of your craziness will shake off. And then, after that experience, whatever that experience will be, you'll be so desperate for order. So you've been so badly shaken that you will, by the way, this is not for anyone who has any slight propensity towards schizophrenia, to have this level of intense shakeups. But after the shakeup, what will happen, you'll be desperate for order out of that chaos. Because chaos and order, like, you can only take so much chaos. But you want to take enough chaos that you've fallen apart entirely. And then you'll be desperate to reorder your life. And you'll notice something amazing, that when you reorder your life, a lot of your craziness, meaning the stupid stuff that's not fair to marry someone with, or raise children with will no longer be part of your order. You will have shaken it from the order of your life. See, your issue and why you're a liability to marry is because you have a lot of your craziness within the order of your life. And human beings are very philosophical, so you've created a whole world of why it's like that. But those whys are what hold it in place. Meaning you've created a giant narrative that's a whole mythology around your craziness, around what a liability you are. But somehow you being crazy and a total liability with a bunch of reasons why makes all the sense in the world to you. Like, it's explainable. Like, as long as you can explain it to a therapist, you're off the hook. And someone has to marry it. Someone has to marry it. The other option is to have the highly discomfortable experience of having someone who knows what they're doing introduce a tremendous amount of chaos into your system, shake you to your foundations, get you completely lost. And once you're totally lost, you can now spring back to order because you're just, as I said before, you'll be desperate to get order back in your life. And you'll notice just during the shakeup that the stuff the stories you've been stuck in are no longer worth telling. You just won't be interested in those stories anymore. And this is why, for example, I don't trust people who don't drink alcohol. No, because they're the ultimate expression of someone who's taken themselves too damn seriously. And they're probably really rough to be in a family with, or to be the child of, or to be married to, or, you know, they're really in some narrative and they're stuck in there big time. And why do you think God commands us every Shabbat on our holy day that you first quaff a glass of wine before anything happens? You know, you literally, like, you come back from synagogue and you quaff a cup of alcohol. But I know people who will drink grape juice and think they're somehow getting away with that. And then no one gets away with that. Our sages did not say drink juice. Okay? Our sages said drink wine and learn to laugh at yourself and shake off this outer crust of garbage that nobody wants or needs, and especially you. Especially you. I mean, think about it. Forget the fact that you're a liability to your spouse. Who are you the biggest liability to? Yourself. Like, do you realize you live with yourself all the time? You ever notice that?
Yeah.
Like, you can't get away from it?
24/7.
It's crazy. You can't get away from it. Like, your spouse, you know, they could at least go to work. You know, they can at least get out from you. You know, there is a way out. And good luck getting out of you. You know, that's why I'm saying I recommend that, you know, go to a highly trained professional.
Have you ever tried mushrooms?
Out of body.
Out of body. So there are substances that shake off unwanted order like that. Those are the things like psychedelic plant medicines and other compounds are considered the most, you know, at least something you can ingest that would cause that kind of shakeup. All those would cause that kind of shake. Now, I wish I could offer you all a seminar. I myself lead seminars like this. That's why I'm talking about it with authority, because I've been doing it for 18 years. I have 8,000 graduates. But my next seminar is in New York. I have one in New York City. I don't even know when. The 10th. Yeah, because someone actually sent me an email just now. I have one in New York City on the 10th. What's the month after this one? 10th of November. And I have one. What's going to be the following Sunday, the 17th? If the 10th is Sunday, does that make the next one the 17th?
Yes.
Thank you. The 17th in a place called Muncie, New York, up in the woods up there, in the sticks. And then, and you know what? Not the following week, which would be the 21st, but the 28th of November, I have a program for men. It'll be men and women in Muncie, only men in Brooklyn. men and women in Muncie, separate, obviously. And then Jerusalem's going to be on the 28th. Is that a Sunday, maybe? November 28th? How am I doing with my math? But I've got a men's seminar November 28th.
You're doing pretty good with your math.
Thank you very much, Aviva. Appreciate that. Okay, back to us. So maybe we are off the hook because we are hardwired for survival, and maybe you do need it. For getting married, you got to get to work on that. For your survival, you can just watch. There's not much you got to do for your own survival. You know, you can really start, no offense, but you could start skipping meals. Yeah. Like, I don't think you really need to eat as much as you've been eating. You can already like start skipping them, okay? Like I skipped probably at least a meal. I don't know, my daughter's here. How many meals do I skip a day? Maybe. You'd be very proud of me. I had a tuna fish sandwich today. And it was only because the guy I was meeting was late, so I said, I'm going to do something that would make my wife and daughters proud. And I went to a store and bought a tuna fish sandwich. So anyway, but just eat what keeps your body alive. That's it. Give your body a break, you know. Starve your body a little, especially some of those things that people are eating today could be actually causing our harm. And there are even diets for people who have cancer, God forbid, that they starve the cancer out. I forget there's one food they specifically avoid. I forget what it was.
Well, sugar and fats.
Sugar and fats. Water fasting, but you can literally starve those mutant, rebellious cells in the body. And anyways, but the good way to maintain your health is just kind of skip meals a bit here and there, and drink water, and keep a good eye on your body that you're just giving it the foods at once. And also, before you eat, hold the food a moment and ask yourself the question, not how much you want it in your mouth. Just ask yourself, how much do I want this in my body? How much I want this taking a little hotel room for the next day? Yeah? I mean, I don't just let anyone come over to my house and sleep over. We're going to think it through whether you're invited to sleep over. But maybe you should hold food in the future and say, what is this? How much I want this in my body? Everyone try that. Everyone raise your right hand, pretend there's a piece of food in there, and say together, how much do I want this in my body?
How much do I really want this in my body?
Yeah, you didn't do it. That's all right. Let's try it again. 1, 2, 3. How much do I want this in my body? Because you are what you eat, and that thing's going to become you. And by the way, I think you should eat a lot, meaning a lot of things, just in very little quantity. Like, for example, think about it. If you are what you eat, and there's a piece of there's a little bird, and it somehow winds up lucky enough to get slaughtered and eaten by me. Yeah. So now that bird, I don't know what you call a bird, Helen, Florence, I don't know what you call a bird. So anyway, but little Helen over there has become Rabbi Yom Tov. Because once she's digested, and now in my bones and my blood and my arteries and my organs, and like that chicken's become me, and now I'm doing mitzvahs, and I'm singing songs on Shabbos. That bird before, all it could do was, what do chickens make noise with? Bark, 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 bark. Yeah, now it's like, yeah. So it's the birds now singing songs to God. It's singing songs to God. Like, that's what you want to do with that bird. Now, how much do you think you have to eat of the bird to get it singing? The answer is like one little bite of the bird. Take one little bite of the bird. I think you could probably get a piece of salmon singing just by poking it. Yeah. Nah, you poke it, put a little in. Salmon's good food, although don't want to overeat it because of mercury and stuff. But definitely a piece of salmon, a little piece of chicken. You can get your vegetation singing too. Like eat an apple today, and next thing you know, your apple's praying to God. Because you're gonna be using those simple sugars are going to go right into your bloodstream, and you're going to go pray and maybe you go to the Western Wall after you eat your apple. I would even think about maybe saving an apple just for the Western Wall, and eat it right before you go, and then let its juices pray to God through you. But this is how Jews you should know, this is how Jews historically saw themselves. We saw ourselves as conduits, as conduits to God, that by us fixing, and we're really fixing that food. I mean, first we're making sure if it was grown in Israel that it's been tithed properly. Otherwise it's like eating pork. And what is the difference between eating an untithed celery stick, meaning it wasn't portioned out to the Kohen, the priest, and the Levite, the Levi, or the poor? You got to tithe this stuff, but what is the difference between a celery stick and a piece of pork? Meaning an untithed celery stick. If you didn't separate out the other little portion that goes to the gifts, by the way, there's only produce grown in Israel, but if you didn't tithe it out, what's the difference between that and a piece of pork? You're basically eating pork. And then next time you think like, oh, why do they have to have kosher certificates on a vegetable stand? People just see that, they have no idea what's going on, but the answer is because we don't eat pork, and we want to make sure the meat we eat is from kosher animals and slaughtered properly. And we also want to make sure our vegetation was tithed properly. It's always funny when you get a Shabbos guest and he comes in with a bag full of fruit. He's like, here you go. And we're just kind of like holding the bag full of fruit. We're like, where did you buy this? And he's like, what does it matter? And we're like, it matters. And you have to understand, if it's untithed, you can't even move it. So you're going to have to stand there the rest of Shabbos.
Really?
No, you can drop it. Squish. It happens to us like once or twice a year. Someone comes with a bag of fruit from like God knows where, and they themselves have no idea where. They can't even figure out why they're getting interrogated. You bring a gift and you get 20 questions. Wine also, you got to be careful with wine. So, thank God we live here. Thank God we're here. Now, regarding your livelihood, yeah, you got to do something, but you don't have to do much. But with marriage, you got to do a lot to be marriageable. There you got to push hard. These are two instincts that we have: survival and reproduction. And when it comes to marriage, you got to be like super diligent. When it comes to earning a living, since God never let you down, He probably is not going to. And lastly is, if you want the blessing of the land of Israel, is if you come into this land, Shmuel, I'm back to your honor now, because you made Aliyah. If you come into this land, as a full commitment, so, just to hear God, Shmuel, just to hear God, and you will be blessed. You'll be blessed financially. And whatever you have is what you need. You'll be just perfect. God does keep the Israeli society, unless you're in high tech, He does keep Israeli society He keeps us pretty close to the bone here. Meaning God keeps us pretty close to the bone. And but that's a good thing. Most people don't survive well. I've just officially stopped being mean to wealthy people, because I realized it wasn't coming from a good place. I was being a little rough with wealthy people, and I finally realized that I was having my own reaction, from my capitalist father, and kind of taking it out on wealthy people. But the wealthy people are people too. But what I have discovered is that some of my best friends are wealthy. So what I have found, though, is that wealthy people are some of the loneliest people, and they're also some of the most fearful, and their trust level's very low. And when your trust level's low, you have no currency for relationship. And the currency of relationship, like the actual current, is trust. You all know that. I mean, you'll notice you only open your heart with someone as much as you can trust them. And I think they've been on one too many exclusive vacations. What's the word exclusive come from the word? Comes from the word? Exclude, yeah. You gotta pay to play in those circles, but after a while you find yourself in your own padded cell. And some of these people even wind up, I've dealt with many of them that sadly have wound up with social anxiety in a pretty big way, like to the point of pathology almost. And so God keeps the nation of Israel pretty close to the bone, and it keeps us honest. Most people don't do too well with wealth. It's probably been the worst thing that ever happened to the Jewish people. We've survived thousands of years of poverty as a nation, as a tribe that was true to its ancestral heritage. But, after World War II, when all that wealth hit American Jewry, European Jewry, we've already had 6 million Jews. The amount killed in the Holocaust, we've already had 6 million Jews, as of 10 years ago, disappear from calling themselves Jewish on the U.S. Census. You understand that as many died in the Holocaust have already disappeared from this census. And not saying we can blame that all on wealth, but it was a player, big time, because the American dream is about wealth. And the American dream is the Jewish nightmare. And one of the beauties of living in the land of Israel is God gives each person, it's like manna, like each family gets the right amount outside their door. Like the Jews in the desert, everyone wound up with the right amount outside their door. And it really works that way. But it really works that way. And you'll see strange things. Like, for example, what's your name? Mark, you'll be making more than anybody in your neighborhood one day, and you'll still wind up with nothing at the end of the year. But you might have eaten nicer foods, I don't know. But, and the guy next to you also wound up with whatever he needed. And he made a fraction, and you both wound up with like everything equaled zero at the end. God just makes it happen that way. And it keeps you honest, keeps you real, and you're still engaged with the world and the people around you, and our nation stays united. There's no such thing as exclusive here. And if there is something exclusive, I get nauseous. I had a student get married in a very exclusive wedding 2 weeks ago, and I was just like, and they literally, the bouncers at the door of the wedding I'm invited to, like literally looked me up and down, were about to bounce me. But behind me, my wife's a little short, so they didn't see, like right behind me, waiting at the door, she just filed in right behind me, was my wife, like totally decked out. And they were just like, they looked at me and they're like, they were, you could see he was already reaching for like a taser gun or something, Let's just tase him before he even thinks to come into this wedding, And then they see my wife and they're just like, go right ahead. You can go to me, you can go too. You can escort her. So that kind of stuff just makes me ill. Am Yisrael, hi. Shana Tova. Oh, sorry, it's Thursday. I always forget.